This is the Unrationed podcast, and today we are going to skip wild moments, or really just talk about one wild moment in particular, which is Josh having a little baby girl. Congratulations, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's her name? Would you mind sharing the story with us? And yeah, this is kind of like a catch up for us because we haven't spoken since you had your baby, other than getting some wonderful texts.
Yeah. So Nora Lou Aranda was born last Thursday, November 17th, at like 6 p.m., which is pretty cool.
So your daughter and my son share a birthday, which is
she wanted that.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, and also I'm Tony.
Oh, hey, I'm Josh.
Yeah.
I'm Evan.
Yeah. You were saying? This is
That's
the
a really good
bloopers reel we were
segue to
just
like
talking about.
introduce yourself. Yeah, I like that. That was kind of like back channel stuff. Where was I? Oh yeah, so 2 weeks ago my wife had an ultrasound and the baby was measuring a little small. They were saying like less than fifth or sixth percentile. And then her amniotic fluid was measuring a little bit low too. And so she said there could be, or the doctor said there could be a reason that she'd want to take the baby a little bit early. And so we went into the ultrasound on Thursday, and after them doing that and talking to the doctor, she's like, yeah, let's get this baby out of here. Like the risks don't outweigh the risks are way heavier, like keeping the baby in longer. So we went in Thursday morning, and
which was how many weeks?
She was 36 weeks and 6 days. So technically it's called late preterm. So 37 weeks would be term, I guess. And so she was late preterm. And so, yeah, we found out at like 12 o'clock that we were going to have a baby that night. So we went home and got a few things packed up and went into the hospital around 3:30, and she started getting all prepped. So this was my wife's. Go ahead.
Can you talk to me about that time between 12, whenever you found out you were going to have a baby that night, and then getting to the hospital? That feels like a threshold moment in a way where you know something's going to happen, but it's not yet there. Is there anything meaningful or worth sharing about that 6-hour period?
It's a great question. I think a couple things. One, both my wife and I wanted to have like lunch together, like after the ultrasound. And because she was going to have the C-section that night, she had to fast for 8 hours. And so I remember like not getting to do some things that I wanted to do before the baby came, specifically with Laura. So I remember that like standing out. And then I also thought that I wasn't going to go on paternity leave until like 2 or 3 weeks later down the road. And so I'm thinking like I still have time to max perform and get everything tidied up, and just stuff wasn't all tidied up. And so there was a couple things that I like did for work to get off my plate. And then I think the other thing that I was remembering is like I'm trying to like put myself in that moment. The other thing, I wanted like more time with the boys. I think like it was kind of like rushed to take care of a couple things, get the car seat ready, pack a bag, all that good stuff, get the car seat loaded. And I remember like still playing with the boys, but they had no idea really, like they didn't process that they were going to have a sister that night. So I think a couple things where I just wanted a little bit more time, or I wanted a little bit more control on when the baby was going to come, as opposed to like finding out that day that we were going to go into the hospital that night. But it was awesome. Like it was just like super exciting. Like you don't really know what to do, so you do random things. And like I'm just like killing time to like go to the hospital at 3:30, and so I took out the trash and like I did like dad chores or something. Like what should I do? But yeah, it was really 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 special. And then I always like the time before Laura goes in for the actual C-section. So this is Laura's third. And there's like this 1 hour time period where no nurses are coming in. Laura's all like prepped and ready to go, like in her surgical gown. And we're just kind of like chilling there. And I don't know, it's kind of fun. We both like, we're getting tired, and then we'd like talk about the baby coming. So it's just kind of like a things, you don't have like a window to see outside and like what time of day it is. So you're kind of like, yeah, sealed up
Like
from the world.
stacked thresholds. Like
Yeah.
there are thresholds within thresholds within thresholds.
Yeah, you're not
you're
kidding.
exploring here. Those moments stand out to me as well, of being in the hospital with my kids, that pre-arrival, but everything's set up and ready to go. There's like a waiting. Did you have the same experience, Tony?
Yeah. It's bringing to mind when Wilder was born, I had actually come home from a business trip. Like I was driving back from Chicago to St. Louis on a Friday afternoon, and got back to St. Louis at about 5 o'clock, and Seville picked me up from dropping the rental car off, and her contractions started like a half hour after that. And so there was this and there was like this 5 hour period between that and when we went to the hospital, whereas like my mother-in-law was there, my sister and her daughter were there, and so it's just this really nice time. It's a really lovely memory of just like hanging out and
Yeah.
like just waiting, and yeah, just trying to be useful, but also entering that period as a soon to be father of, there's only so much you're capable of contributing in this moment, beyond support and love.
I do find the like sentiment of like trying to find to be like a way to be useful is like a very common thing like around the delivery. It's like there's nothing that I add. There's like zero value that I add besides like moral support, which is a lot of value, but like you see all these people doing things. But yeah.
When Sky was coming, our daughter, we had this experience with Wilder where it was like the contractions were it was kind of increasingly painful and uncomfortable for Seville, but it's like things looked like they weren't all that progressed, and then all of a sudden they super were, in a way that the doctor is like literally running into the room and like putting on her gear, say like yelling like don't push, to the point that the baby was almost like, it's like somebody should catch the baby. But then when Sky came, it was the same sort of deal, but so it's like all of a sudden Seville's like, I think the baby's coming, and there's no doctor in sight, and the nurse is like, okay, well, I'm gonna go check out. I was like, get a doctor. And that's like the last time my baby was almost born on the floor. Get somebody in here who can catch the baby. And sure enough, it worked. They got somebody in there, and the Sky was born like 10 minutes later.
Oh my God.
So that I contributed that my baby wasn't just like sliding out and just kind of bungee jumping with the umbilical cord.
Oh, man.
There's nothing like these, like I imagine anybody that's listening who's gone through labor and delivery is thinking about similar stories or their own story, because everything that you guys are saying brings back the feelings and emotions and like little detail, like my memory somehow holds on to more information from those times than other times. They're very memorable, and our minds hold on to all of that in a way that is interesting to me.
Seville
Okay.
and I we were talking about that idea actually in the context of Josh and Laura welcoming their daughter. I have a tendency not to remember all that much about a lot of things that have happened to me in the past, or a lot of things that I've done. Um, but those experiences do stand out.
Yeah.
There are a lot more details that, and it is interesting to think about maybe events that are more heightened in, let's say, in a difficult or maybe even traumatic way, and how those details, well, it seems like for some people they might be, it's like either they can be heightened and more present, or they sort of get erased. But yeah, for these, yeah, it's nice. I'm glad I remember more about those.
Yeah. Evan and I taught quite a few people about the word Zimzum after Nora was born. And I remember like I mean, I could talk about the whole thing for a long time because it's really powerful. But anyways, we were in the hospital room after delivery, like, so the place that Laura's gonna hang out for the next couple days. And so Nora looks so much like my oldest, Jack, who's 4 years old. Like their baby pictures are ridiculously close. And anyways, I was looking at Nora, like holding her, and then looking at pictures of the boys. And like I felt myself loving my boys even more,
Hmm.
and like loving Laura or Nora. This is gonna be a hard thing with Nora and Laura. And no, this is bad. But anyways, yeah, like so I told Laura, she had already listened to one of the podcasts with Zimzum in there, but I taught it to a couple other people, and it just like it made so much sense in that moment. And
Mm.
that like, we have this new life that as long as I can contract on myself, there's so much more love to give around. And I just, yeah, I felt myself loving Jack and Noah and like adoring them even more now that I had Nora. And then like every day loving Nora more, which is a really cool thing to recognize day by day that sentiment is growing,
Yeah, that's really cool. And then even as you were saying that, you said the word contract. And when I hear that in the context of a labor and delivery
Yeah.
conversation, it is like a painful contraction that leads to a new creation, like the birth of something new. And so Zimzum, like that's adding some depth to this concept for me. That Zimzum is a contraction that leads to a birth of sorts, like a birth of something, an energy, let's say, that binds together two objects. And it oftentimes can be painful in nature, that contraction. It's not a experience that is without suffering.
Yeah, I like that.
But it leads to, I think, what you're talking about, which is more room for love or greater love for that which space has been made for.
Yeah. So the question is, are you all going to have your third baby?
No,
No. Okay.
I mean, I don't think so. It appears we're both 40, and it's been such a beautiful time. Now Sky is 21 months old, and I think we're looking forward to the next chapter.
We don't know. Maybe not yet. Boone
They are going to. Yeah.
Boone is waking up. He was sick last week, and he would wake up kind of at 3-4 a.m. and throw up, and he's been sleeping through the night for a little while now. And that wasn't fun, waking up in the night to clean up, throw up, which seems just to be a necessary part of parenting for everybody who chooses to go down this road. And he's no longer sick and no longer throwing up, but still waking up at 3 and 4, like consistently. And so asking me this question this week is like, hell no.
Yeah.
But as soon as he's sleeping through the night again, and like, and he's just so resilient, like we'll just not go in there and he just escalates until he gets exactly what he wants, and
Yeah.
it's like no sleep is happening in the early morning hours right now, which is not a fair thing to say to you, Josh, because I know the first couple of weeks are you're putting sentences together far better than I expected.
I've been up for a little bit, so I feel like I got some warm up. But yeah,
There you go.
so Laura and I in the middle of the night, we're like trying to put stuff together, and like she'll be like asking me for something, or I'm like, okay, am I supposed to do this? And both of us are like looking at each other like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. It's like, let me try this again. And there's always these like really cute moments in the middle of the night where like we'll both just like start laughing, and she's got like the C-section scar. She's like, shut up, like don't make me laugh. But we're just like cracking up because we're just incoherent messes, but
Yes,
beautiful.
it's a delirium.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
There's maybe not another clear, I haven't put this together yet either, not a more clear cycle of orientation, disorientation, reorientation that I've gone through in my life, other than the birth of both of my children. It's a very clear disorientation.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe even the most accurate form of disorientation I've physically embodied in those late nights whenever it's delirium. Like, yeah. And then the reorientation process really takes time. It's not a moment.
Yeah.
Which is just a good good thing to remember. Even from our Colorado trip, like reorienting after being in the mountains, having that not be a moment, but something that I continually look to, or would benefit from continually looking to integrate the things learned and experienced into life. Like there's not a moment you come off the mountain, you're all of a sudden reoriented to the world around you.
Yeah.
Tony, that made you think about something.
You're saying that there's not a specific moment where that happened? It's just a gradual process?
Correct. And maybe the better way to say that, or better way to more clarification would be there seem to be thresholds between orientation, disorientation, and reorientation. So there's a threshold that exists between the disorientation and reorientation that I'm attempting to identify. And the threshold is the process of taking what's been experienced and learning from it and integrating it, taking it from just mental knowledge to action.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, it is. That's a process, right? Yeah, where there's just a space between that we spend time in, and things bake and percolate and process. Yeah.
And then to your point, though, if you were trying to make a point by asking that question, I would say moments are hard to define, in the sense that no matter how micro you get, there's always still a process happening, even if, because I think some people do experience transformations in a moment, like near-death experiences, or I think they're more fringe cases that cause like immediate transformation that I can think of. And I would still say that those moments are processes, because on a time scale, they're still happening over time. It's just a smaller window of time than the one that I was talking about initially. Is that to your point? Is that a point you were trying to make with your question?
They're in the same ballpark. Yeah. I was more just looking for clarification, but no, I think that's right. My last drink comes to mind as one of those sort of epiphanies where it's like I go out drinking in Osaka. It's been 6 months of kind of realizing I needed to stop, and I'd had 2 times drinking in those 6 months, and then just waking up and the next morning and I haven't wanted to drink since. And I totally agree with you that there was a process going on in that 6-month period that led to the epiphany.
Hmm.
But I was thinking about it recently and was surprised when I mapped out the timeline that in my mind, a lot of the work had already taken place, like the spiritual work, like the cleaning out my spiritual garbage that had led to moral bankruptcy and kind of starting to get my spiritual house in order. Um, there was a lot of that work that happened in that time period, but it was after that. And I was in
Hmm.
my mind, the way I had integrated the story was that a lot of that work had happened leading up to that epiphany. And then I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I was like, no, gonna
The epiphany led to the spiritual work, not the other way around, is what you're saying.
well, it was almost like they happened on two different tracks. It was like
Hmm.
like that work, like my AA work just kind of unfolded the way it was gonna unfold. But like that moment happened in its own time where yeah. And I assume that the work I put in after the fact reinforced that moment. And like maybe if I don't do that work, then I end up feeling the desire to drink somewhere along the way, you know. But yeah. Hmm,
Hmm.
yeah. So naturally we take an episode about Josh's new baby and I bring it back around to not just myself but alcohol, my drinking problem. That's where this was supposed to go.
I think clear journeys of transformation is always where we go, and so that's great.
Uh,
Well, I think
yeah,
you
that
go ahead.
Zimzum. Hey, Josh, what's Zimzum? I forgot.
Well, I'm gonna quote Evan on this. It comes from Hebrew mysticism, right?
Yeah, I think that's called the Kabbalah, but I could be wrong there.
And it is basically talking about, or it means like God contracting on himself to create space for essentially more love, is the way that I interpret it or understood it from Evan's definition.
Well,
Which is pretty good.
yeah. I'd say maybe in a mystical sense too, that is actually the birth of love, is God's contraction of himself, like making space for love itself. Like that is where love comes from, is from that contraction. And that is where everything comes from, is from that contraction. But I digress because I'm gonna go down more of a mystical, like we uh, the universe is expanding because of that contraction. That contraction led to an implosion of sorts that we call the Big Bang, and now everything is hurling outwards in a trajectory that continues to speed up in ways that mathematically are not making sense, the latest articles that I've read.
This is going to be a weird analogy.
All right.
But the smirk on your face, and I feel like the excitement that you have to like talk about this topic, is like when I like am taking my dog Riley to like the dog park and she knows the dog park is so close and she's just like, open up the damn car door so I can run out there, and she's just like so excited. But that's the energy that I'm getting from you, that you want to go down this tangent, and I appreciate it.
That's such a great analogy, and I do feel that deeply within me. I found myself at lunch the other day I had lunch with my former boss. We still get together fairly often, and he was asking me about very specific things in regards to this product that he's wanting to develop. We were talking about product development, and all of a sudden I found myself on this tangent talking about the universe expanding and contracting, and him, like both of us just like slowly leaning in over the table. And then at the end being like,
So good.
thank you for listening to me explore what I think about the universe.
It's amazing.
But yeah, that the expansion and contraction concept that I believe is Stephen Hawking's theory of everything. is that the universe is expanding until it contracts again, and then it expands again. So we're just in this constant cycle of expanding and contraction. And
Hmm.
like we happen to be so this is where like Alan Watts comes in a little bit with it, as an apple tree apples, so the earth peoples. And it seems as though we are the fruit of this earth in a way that the earth is the fruit of the universe expanding.
I feel like we have to have a lot more conversations about this. I don't know if I understood exactly what you just said. It could be because I'm dense or because I'm sleep deprived
Or
both.
because it's very hard for me to put language to the thoughts or experiences that I have around it. I am likely the one that sounds silly in this circumstance.
We'll leave it to our listeners.
Sure. The
Vote-
few
vote
that
what's
we have
vote on it.
left, they turned this off whenever I said something.
I do have something Tony said, I feel like may tie Tony's journey of transformation and drinking back to pregnancy and delivery. I'll try it. Something that you said about tracks, or like your, spiritual journey and that like epiphany moment, they were like kind of going on concurrently. Yeah, something that you said, which kind of like makes me think about why we're doing the Wilds in the Woods and Unration in general, where like there is all these different tracks going on in life. We ourselves as individuals have multiple tracks, some that I'm intentionally walking on, or some that are being done to me. But some change or some ability for transformation is occurring if I'm willing to accept it or give into it. So we like have all these paths going on concurrently, and they're like railroad tracks. And like at some point, someone's gonna shift, the track, and it's gonna merge with another one. And so in Tony's situation, he had this merging of two concurrent paths that were going on. And to his point, the later work reinforced the path that he was on, as opposed to creating another diversion later on. And so in this situation with like labor and delivery and a new child coming into this world, and then me loving my kids even more, it's like all of a sudden, all these parallel paths, which depends on me and my wife all doing our work to be healthy individuals, healthy masculinity, healthy femininity. And if we choose not to do that work, that path has no ability to intersect with the love for our children, right? It's the reinforcing state that we can essentially, hopefully, hope to achieve later on. So it's like it brings this like this focus, this importance to some of the work that we're attempting to do here, and dudes helping dudes be better dudes. And me and my wife have been talking about all kinds of things from this, from her end too, just women helping women be better women. It's like all these things go together. And if we see them as disconnected things or isolated factors in life, then we will not be able to achieve Zimzum in our own personal life. We won't be able to recognize that love and contract upon ourselves because we think everything's like independent. But anyways, I don't know if that helps tie the two stories together, but I just had this like, a bunch of train tracks going side by side. And I thought the way that you articulated was like helpful to think about what's going on and what's important in our day-to-day actions to make sure our tracks are a little bit closer so that they can merge eventually. But
Nice.
yeah, that's all I got. Now I need to go take a nap.
Yeah. Me too, actually. Yeah. It's 8:20 a.m.
So those tracks, I don't want to take this in a dark direction, and maybe it's not dark. I think it's just like the reality of it. It seems as though those tracks will, in fact, all come together and be one track at some point in time. And that happens, it seems at our death is like the moment when all of the tracks converge. And then as I got to that thought, it's like how are we moving in that direction well? Anyways, the picture that came to mind as you were talking, Josh, was a train in a tunnel, but a single track in a tunnel. And then I was like, oh, the light at the end of the tunnel, like heading towards that. Like that is, how do we get on the same track, or how do we get all of these different things going on?
Yeah.
To align in such a way that we're approaching. Yeah. Anyways, that was what came to mind.
I know a way. People can join wildsinthewoods.com and hop on our email list.
This has probably been one of my favorite episodes to record, and it will likely be one of the least followable episodes
Listenable,
as well.
yeah.
Oh man.
Yes. So
I mean, to sum it up, being a dad is pretty special. Our wives are pretty badass, and like bringing, like, that's so much power. Like to bring a human life into this world. Like Laura was like laying on this table, and like there's 8-9 other people in the room to make sure that they can bring this child out of my wife into the world. And like she's got this like beautiful smile on her face, and it's just like, it's friggin' power, man. And it's like, it's addictive, you know, just like seeing it and witnessing it. But yeah, our wives are badasses. Don't crash your train because you haven't merged your tracks, and join Wilds in the Woods. It's like the show notes.
love it.
Hoo!
All right. Do you want to dismount today, Josh?
Not really.
Okay.
did.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. This is episode 19.
Yeah,
Something.
somewhere between 19 and 20.
Yeah. 19 and a half. Goodness. All right. Josh, get some rest.
Thank you.
Peace out, listeners.